The neon lights of downtown Seattle reflected off the rain-soaked pavement as Captain Marcus Rodriguez stepped out of his gleaming black pickup truck. After 18 years of fighting fires, he had learned to appreciate these quiet moments between emergencies. His shift had ended 3 hours ago, but the adrenaline from rescuing a family of 4 from a warehouse blaze still coursed through his veins. Marcus wasn't your typical firefighter. Standing 6'3" with salt and pepper hair and arms sculpted by years of carrying people to safety, he commanded respect wherever he went. Tonight, however, he had traded his uniform for a simple gray sweater and jeans, hoping to blend into the evening crowd as he headed to his favorite coffee shop. The Golden Bean sat nestled between a high-end boutique and an art gallery, its warm amber light spilling onto the sidewalk like liquid gold. Marcus had discovered this hidden gem 2 years ago and had become a regular draw not just by their exceptional Colombian blend, but by the genuine warmth of the staff and the eclectic mix of customers who gathered there each evening. As he approached the entrance, something made him pause. Through the large windows, he could see a young woman sitting alone at a corner table, her shoulders shaking with silent sobs. Her designer handbag and elegant black dress suggested success, but her posture spoke of someone who had lost everything that mattered. The woman was Isabella Chen, a 28-year-old marketing executive who had just received the most devastating news of her life. That morning, doctors had delivered a terminal diagnosis for her 7-year-old daughter, Lily, the light of her world, her reason for working 16-hour days, her motivation for every sacrifice she had ever made. Isabella had come to the cafe not for the coffee, but because she couldn't bear to return to her empty apartment. Her ex-husband had left when Lily was diagnosed with leukemia 2 years earlier, claiming he couldn't handle the stress. Since then, it had been just Isabella and Lily against the world, and now even that world was crumbling. Marcus watched as other customers glanced at Isabella with a mixture of curiosity and discomfort, then quickly looked away. He recognized that look. He had seen it countless times in his line of work, the expression of someone drowning in plain sight while the world moved on around them. Without hesitation, Marcus entered the cafe and approached the barista, a young man named Jake, who knew him by name. "Hey, Jake," Marcus said quietly. "The lady in the corner, has she ordered anything?" Jake shook his head. "She's been sitting there for over an hour. I asked if she wanted anything, but she just waved me off. Honestly, I was starting to worry." Marcus nodded, his firefighter instincts kicking in. He had spent nearly 2 decades rushing into burning buildings, but he had learned that some of the most important rescues happened in moments just like this, when someone needed saving from the flames of despair rather than actual fire. "Make me 2 of whatever your best comfort drink is," Marcus said, pulling out his wallet. "And maybe some of those chocolate croissants she's been staring at." As Jake prepared the order, Marcus approached Isabella's table with the careful, non-threatening manner he used when dealing with trauma victims. The years had taught him that sometimes the gentlest approach was the most powerful. "Excuse me," he said softly, setting one of the steaming cups on her table. "I couldn't help but notice you might need this more than I do tonight." Isabella looked up, her eyes red-rimmed and filled with a pain so raw it took Marcus's breath away. For a moment, she seemed ready to decline, but something in his expression, the complete absence of judgment, the genuine concern of someone who had seen real suffering, made her nod instead. "Thank you," she whispered, her voice barely audible above the cafe's gentle jazz music. Marcus sat down across from her, not saying anything else, simply offering his presence. In the fire service, he had learned that sometimes the greatest gift you could give someone was just showing up, being there in the darkness until the dawn came. After several minutes, Isabella began to speak. The words tumbled out like water breaking through a dam about Lily, about the diagnosis, about feeling utterly alone in a world that suddenly seemed too cruel to bear. She told him about Lily's dream of becoming a veterinarian, about her collection of stuffed animals that filled every corner of their apartment, about how she still asked when Daddy was coming home. Marcus listened without interruption, occasionally nodding or offering a gentle "I am sorry" when the pain became too much for her to continue. When she finished, he reached into his wallet and pulled out a small worn photograph, a picture of himself in full firefighter gear, standing next to a young girl with a bright smile and a hospital bracelet on her wrist. "This is Emma," he said softly. "I met her 3 years ago when we responded to a call at Children's Hospital. She was 8 years old, fighting the same battle your Lily is facing now." Isabella's breath caught. What happened to her? Marcus smiled, the first genuine smile she had seen all day. "She's 11 now, cancer-free, and wants to be a firefighter when she grows up. But that's not the important part." He leaned forward, his eyes intense but kind. "The important part is what she taught me about hope." He told Isabella about how Emma had been rushed to the hospital during a fire alarm malfunction, how scared and alone she had seemed, how her parents were both deployed overseas with the military. "I started visiting her," Marcus continued, "not as a firefighter, but just as someone who believed she deserved to know she wasn't alone. Emma told me something I'll never forget," Marcus said, his voice growing stronger. "Mr. Marcus," she said, "being brave doesn't mean you're not scared. It means you love someone so much that you keep fighting even when you are scared." Tears began flowing down Isabella's cheeks again. But these were different tears, not the tears of despair, but of recognition, of finding a flicker of light in the darkness. Marcus reached across the table and gently placed his hand over hers. "Your daughter is lucky to have a mother who loves her enough to sit in a cafe and cry for her instead of running away. That's not weakness. That's the strongest kind of love there is." Over the next 2 hours, Marcus shared stories of the families he had encountered, of impossible situations where love had somehow found a way to triumph, of children who had beaten odds that seemed insurmountable. He didn't offer false hope or empty platitudes, but rather something more valuable: the understanding that she didn't have to face this battle alone. As the cafe began to close, Marcus stood up. "I know this might sound strange, but would you mind if I met Lily sometime? I have a feeling she and Emma would get along." Isabella looked up at this stranger who had somehow become a lifeline in her darkest hour. "Why?" she asked. "Why would you do this for us?" Marcus paused, remembering the oath he had taken as a firefighter, the promise to serve and protect. But this went deeper than professional duty. This was about the fundamental human responsibility to lift each other up when the world knocked them down. "Because 18 years ago, I was sitting in a hospital waiting room just like you are now, watching my own father fight cancer. A firefighter, a complete stranger, sat with me all night, didn't say much, just stayed. He didn't save my father's life, but he saved something in me that night. He showed me that even in our darkest moments, we're not alone." Marcus pulled out a business card and wrote his personal number on the back. "Call me when you're ready, day or night. Doesn't matter if it's to talk, to cry, or just to sit in silence. That's what we do. We show up." As Isabella clutched the card to her chest, Marcus headed toward the door. Before leaving, he turned back one more time. "Isabella," he called softly, "tell Lily that Captain Marcus believes in miracles, and that sometimes they come disguised as the love between a mother and daughter." 3 months later, the Golden Bean hosted its first annual Hope Night, an evening where first responders, medical professionals, and community members gathered to support families facing medical crises. The event was Isabella's idea, born from her desire to ensure that no parent would ever have to face their darkest hour alone. At the center of the celebration sat 2 girls. Emma, now 12, and proudly wearing a junior firefighter badge, and Lily, whose latest test results had shown remarkable improvement. They were surrounded by Marcus, Isabella, and dozens of other people who had learned that sometimes the greatest emergencies are one of the ones with sirens and flashing lights. But the quiet moments when someone needs to be reminded that hope still exists in the world. As Marcus watched the 2 girls laugh over their shared dreams of saving lives, he reflected on how a simple act of kindness, Buying a cup of coffee for a stranger had rippled outward to touch countless lives. In his years of fighting fires, he had saved buildings, protected property, and rescued people from burning structures. But that night in the cafe, he had learned that sometimes the most important fires to extinguish were the ones that burned in the human heart. The flames of despair, loneliness, and fear. And sometimes, all it took to put out those fires was showing up with a cup of coffee and the willingness to sit in the darkness until the light returned. The true glamour wasn't in the dramatic rescues or the headlines. It was in these quiet moments of human connection. When one person's decision to care created a chain reaction of hope that would continue long after the coffee grew cold and the cafe lights dimmed. Because that's what heroes really do. They show up, they stay. And they remind us that even in our darkest hours, we are never truly alone. If you like Kindness Records kindness stories, like and subscribe The Kindness Records for more stories.